Welcome to the Divorce Recovery Men Over 40 podcast that empowers men with the tools that foster hope, resilience, and growth during and after divorce. Check it out. Welcome everybody out there to Divorce Recovery Men Over 40. We have Mark Aylward on the mic, and he's been divorced and has some knowledge to give to us, and has a little history with divorce and recovering and things like that. So, Mark, go ahead and start, and I've got some questions for you.
Yeah, thank you, David. I appreciate you having me. I'm looking forward to this discussion.
So, tell us about your experience with divorce and getting custody of your kids and raising them and getting them out of the house and all that good stuff. How did you accomplish that?
Yeah, it's a long story. I'll try and abbreviate it, and maybe you can interrupt me when you deem we want to shift gears. It was formally over contractually in 2011, so like 12 years ago, and I had filed in 2002, so it took almost 10 years, and wow. That's why it's a long story, and I think it bears mentioning that it was very contentious, and the contention was all instigated by my ex-wife, and even at the expense of my children, which is why I ultimately ended up getting sole custody of them. And I had fired my own attorney because all he really did was give all my money away, and then I represented myself with some assistance from a friend of mine who's an attorney, not a divorce attorney, and not in Florida. Mm-hmm. But he helped me, and I represented myself, and I got custody of the kids. They were already in their teenage years by that time, but my daughters had run away to my house and told their mother. They didn't speak for 10 years. So it was really bad. And my son remained over there, and he got kind of emotionally abused, and they're all doing great today. But we had some anxiety and panic attacks, and there was an addiction that's behind us now as well with one of the kids. And so it was really turbulent, but I'm out the other end, and the kids are doing great, like I say, and I'm transitioning into a coaching field, leveraging my 30 years of experience in the talent acquisition recruiting space. So we can go into any of those areas you want, David, but it's a long set of stories. So pick your spots.
All right, I'm going to pick my spot. So let's talk about drive. You seem to be a driven man. You know, I can see that. I can sense that through the microphone and the ill-gotten technical problems we've had earlier. How does your drive compare to getting through a divorce, move on with your life? Are you more driven now before you were divorced, or how does that work?
I don't know that I'm any more driven. I'm more relaxed. I'm enjoying what I'm doing a lot more. But my children were getting, emotionally shot at for, mm-hmm. 10 years. And, do you have kids?
Yes. 3.
Yeah. So, when someone threatens your child, you turn into a different person, and sure. It's very difficult to turn that on and off, and so, I tell people I was faced with this, nasty situation, and it's like, you got 2 choices, right? Get through it or give up. And yeah. I was never the guy to give up, that option never appealed to me. So I just did whatever I needed to do and kept going as much as I could. And what I decided to do is I'm going to invest in my children's lives and their upbringing. So I passed on monetary opportunities, and I lost all my money in the divorce. So it was kind of rough go there for a while. But I didn't miss a volleyball practice or a little league game or a teacher's meeting or anything. I did all of that. And I put myself in a situation where I could work from anywhere, coaching people on Zoom calls and over the phone from gymnasiums and buses. And so it was so driven, I get a kick out of a sense of accomplishment. And when I'm not accomplishing something, my mind wanders, and that's when I can bring in a little anxiety or worry or any of those negative emotions.
Oh, definitely.
So, yeah. So I think my drive is really because when I'm not driving, my mind wanders like all of us. And I prefer to be in that driving position, I guess.
So when you're in that driving position, How do you relate to your passion muscle? That was the two words I kind of keyed on when I read your bio. What is your passion muscle? What is a passion muscle?
It's for me, it's serving other people. It's helping someone move from a position of uncertainty, fear,
Hmm.
sometimes shame. There's a lot of negative emotions that you can circle around money and status and career and job title and all that stuff. So, and then you pull them out of there with information, advice, coaching. And
Oh,
when you see them make the transition, and now you're talking to someone with a level of certainty, which creates happiness, right? They're more optimistic. It manifests itself right in front of you, and it's fairly immediate. So that's what my passion is.
so for my guys over 40 rather, and going through a divorce, how can you relate some of those passion and those career choices into recovering from divorce?
Well, they're all choices. Since I've been an entrepreneur my whole life, I didn't have to move from working for someone else to working for myself.
Hmm.
So I wasn't steeped in any of that normal fear and uncertainty myself. I just had to reshape what it looked like. So I tell people, even people that aren't going through divorce, most people I talk to, I guess particularly those that are going or have just gone through divorce, you're emotionally at least a little bit broken down. So what I did is instead of making the bad choices like, let's hit the liquor store and let's go clubbing and meet another woman, and messing around, I went back to church and took up yoga and kicked up my exercise notch a little bit. So, because exercise is something I've always leaned on. But I tell people, the first thing you do is self-reflection, because most people aren't doing what they were put on this earth to do. They're doing something because someone else suggested it when they were young and they stayed in a particular career path. And, you get to middle age and you're like, what am I doing? And I think as soon as you recognize that you're halfway home, that brings a seriousness of purpose to the situation. But I tell people, spread your wings, man. You can do way more than you think you can do. And the first step in doing that is giving yourself permission to do that.
Yeah.
And then it becomes, okay, let's figure out how to tell your story so that when we get engaged with someone that might be a client or a potential employer, that we're not just vomiting words, which is what most people do. We have a clear story. It's compelling. It's specific. It makes people want to talk to you again and talk to you more in depth. And most people don't do any of that. They immediately just start going out, sending their resume around without any clear purpose, no passion, and it's a very frustrating way to go about, taking that next step after divorce. So you got to collect your thoughts, man.
There's a lot of parallels between you and I. Contentious divorce, a very interesting ex, rebuilding in the end. Look back, would you do it the same? I wouldn't change a thing. The struggle was tough, but it was worth it.
The only thing that I regret about it is I got the wrong attorney at the very beginning. He came with all kinds of references. He was very expensive. Everybody said he was great. And I think I caught him at the end of his career. I think he'd already emotionally given up because we just caved. Just give her the house. She's going to get it anyway. I'm thinking to myself, what kind of a statement is that? What?
Yeah.
And so, but I got so deep in with him that I didn't have the guts to fire him and start all over until it got to a point where I had no alternative. I was all out of money. I was done. And the kids were just like, they were treated by the system like ping pong balls, so I would have got a different attorney or I would have fired this guy earlier. That's probably a better way to say it. Other than that, no. I mean, the learning and the love and the growth and the overcoming hardship is something to be proud of, Yep. So it's, to me, all this stuff is just how you look at it, how you respond to it. It's not what it is. Everyone gets steamrolled by something, so
It's your turn. Bend over. So that leads to my next question, and you pretty much answered it. But how do you handle dealing with struggles and moving on with your life and having those big losses? How do you rebound? What's your plan of attack on that?
Well, I've always believed in God, and this didn't test my faith. I was actually glad to have my faith going through this, and I have I got a good support group. I've got a good family. I've got a good, small, tight circle of friends, and so I leaned on them, and hopefully not, burdensome, but everybody came to bat, man. Everybody showed up, and it became evident to me pretty early on in my life that, okay, because I played a lot of team sports, and it was like the concept of getting knocked down and getting back in the game. Well, I learned that very early, so I think part of it was that. And then, my parents, they're personal accountability people. They're not victims. So I never went down that road either. It was, of course, as you well know, there's days when this was not true. There were days when it was dark. But as a general rule, the ride was always, okay, that's bad. What do we do? All right, instead of saying, oh, woe is me, let's do it, right? And put it behind us. So I think it's kind of that's that approach that helped me.
It's almost like everybody has a divorce story. People that are divorced have a divorce story. Mm-hmm. And as you grow and heal, that divorce story changes. So the more that story changes, the better you heal. What was your jumps into that?
Just rephrase that a little differently. Clarify that question for me, if you would, David.
You were saying that you were telling people to craft their story, correct?
Yeah. Okay. Mm-hmm.
When you're a man over 40, you're getting divorced. How can they craft their story better in order to heal?
I think it's a similar thing to anybody that I would coach up. I think it's human nature, maybe not for everybody, but for most people, to want to blame someone or something else. And particularly when you're coming out of a divorce, men can really get bitter. Women can too, but because the way I was treated forget about my ex-wife, she didn't like me, whatever, I don't the system itself is still like it's in the 1950s, and the fact that I was a tall, successful, confident, articulate man worked against me, because the system went, he'll be fine. We got to take care of this poor woman over here. And the other thing it did was it didn't ever take into consideration what was in the best interest of my children. So I think the biggest thing I would say to guys that have been divorced going back into the workforce or trying to pick up clients is, don't bring that side of the story with you. There's no. Blaming someone else or something else is the kiss of death in a job interview.
It's almost like you don't want to tell them you're divorced.
Well, yeah. I think the other thing I'm a big fan of in this space, in any space, is transparency. So I never tell people to hide things. Okay. I just think what I've become very skilled at over the years is when to say something, to whom to say it, and how to say it. And people mess the order of those things up. They're like, yeah, well, you don't just open your mouth about how much money you want in the beginning of an interview. That comes later on, and it's initiated by them, not you. So, I've coached thousands of people in this particular instance. Some of them divorced, some of them not. The rules, I think, are the same. Don't bring your baggage with you, and impress me with your ability to solve problems, particularly mine, and tell me how you might do something like that. So people just need, and particularly guys, that are coming out of that kind of a hardship, they just need a little bit of direction and reframing. It has been my experience.
It's almost like a similarity between trying to find somebody who's lost a job and somebody who's gone through a divorce. You have to pick them up, dust them off, and have them move forward.
You do. And some people can do that and some people can't. But there's a group of people in the can't that can be taught how to, But yeah, it's the same thing. I mean, if you lose your job, your pride is pinged, your skill sets are pinged, your confidence pinged. It's pretty similar. Obviously the divorce is much more emotional, but perhaps not, perhaps not.
When do you know when you can't help a client? That's one of my questions. How do you know when to give up and say, hey, maybe you're better served elsewhere?
Well, so there's two clients in the recruiting space. It's the company that's looking to hire somebody, and it's the candidate that you're representing. And, the candidate, when you get rid of a candidate is when actions are not consistent with words, or if the candidate is unwilling to share pretty personal information. For instance, how much money do you make? I have to know that before I represent you, because the client's going to ask me, what's this guy make right now? And you're going to fill out an application at some point. You're going to have to put this down. Maybe you're going to have to prove your income with W-2s. So let's not beat around the bush and try and tell me the conditions that have put you in a situation where you're not making as much as you should. Just tell me what you're making, and not everybody likes that conversation. So, but it's like, I'm going to send you a resume. Okay. I need that resume in 24 hours. And if I don't get the resume in 24 hours, there's an inconsistency. That's the candidate side. And the candidates, they're working with other recruiters, right? They have to tell you everything about what's going on. And when I find out that someone has misled me about what else they have going on, I drop them. So I guess you'd call that integrity. Mm-hmm. On the client side, some clients just think that we're transactional. We're just going to take limited information from them. We're going to go out into the marketplace on a contingent basis, so we don't get paid until they hire someone. And then they're unwilling to give you the information you need to do your job, or they have not prioritized their hiring because nobody likes to hire. The process is painful. And so people that are in positions of leadership have busy schedules, and it's very easy for them to go, I really need this guy right now, Mark, and then have some other emergency pop up, and they don't tell you that they just reprioritize the hiring process. And I'm out looking around, expending energy and time and my reputation, chatting with people, and when I come back, things have changed. I'll let that happen once, but if that becomes a habitual, doesn't matter. You can't chase fees. You can't chase money. You can't chase transactions. It's about relationships, but they have to be reciprocal.
Dang. So we have a guy over 40 getting divorced. He's going through a financially hard time. What kind of advice can you give him? Because that happened to me. It happened to you. It happens to quite a few men out there. What kind of advice can you give them in order to right the ship or keep the ship from sinking?
Yeah, I never filed for bankruptcy, but I was close. And matter of fact, I think she did, ironically, and then she got the windfall at the end. But,
wait, we are so similar. Mine filed bankruptcy too. Man, we're twins.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, it's the hardest part about the whole thing for me was I was always, and still now am pretty good. My dad was a fighter pilot and airline pilot, and one of the things he taught me when I was a kid was, he would say things like, Mark, what do you think I would do if one of my engines caught fire? And I said, I don't know. And he goes, nothing. And the lesson was when bad things happen, or emergencies or tragics, really bad things happen, you have to stop and go, okay, I can't react in this emotional state. How do I get myself back to a state of objectivity? And I've developed a skill that allows me to do that very quickly. As a matter of fact, my innate reaction now is, oh, that's really bad. Pause. Don't say anything. Don't do anything. Give yourself a second. And sometimes, David, all you need is a second. And sometimes you need like 15 minutes. But it has to be a purposeful exercise. Does that make sense?
Yep. Take a pause and got to break away from it.
Yeah. Definitely.
That's interesting, man. But your dad was a very smart guy.
He's still around. He's 95. He takes no prescription medication, and he's still driving his own car. So I'm
Damn.
I got some good genes, David. I got some good genes.
You got some. Well, that is my dog in the background and the mailman. That's okay.
Yeah. Authenticity, man.
It's interesting. You talk about uncertainty and gain clarity. What is that about?
Most of the uncertainty that I bump into is people don't know what to do next. I was just on the phone with a client yesterday, and I think he'd said to me 4 or 5 times in a row, "That's a great idea. That's a great idea. That's a great idea." And so I help people understand what their options are. And, I think this is one of the reasons I think coaches are so valuable when they're good, and because they can help you see things that you can't see. And it's just, let's take the circumstances. Let's talk through the circumstances. Let's find out where there are opportunities. Let's find out where there are challenges and fill those gaps. And you can just watch it happening. Okay. Yeah, I never would have thought of that. And the other thing that we're all stuck in these habits. We do things the way we do them because it's the way we've always done them. And that doesn't factor in technological advancement, economic uncertainty, changes in the marketplace, the introduction of things like the internet and artificial intelligence. Yep. I mean, stuff changes fast. So if you haven't looked for a job in 10 years, chances are the way that you want to look for it today is very different than the way you wanted to look for it 10 years ago. And people their brains don't update. Somebody needs to nudge them. So, and the clarity is just, 30 years of experience helping all kinds of different people in the technology field find work. There's very little that I haven't seen when it comes to how do I get from a position of uncertainty to a position of clarity. I hope that answered your question.
Yes, that did.
Okay.
All right, Mark, that was interesting, man. You made me think, man. You're dead. We really appreciate your time and your knowledge and thanks for getting me through this, man. It was brutal at first.
Yeah, we did. We got through it. Yeah, no, thank you so much for having me, David. Wow. I really appreciate that. Oh
yeah, we're going to have all your information at the bottom of the podcast. Your what's it called? The 7pillarsglobal.com. You want to talk about that?
7 Pillars is just the entity that I invoice through, and it's an LLC. That's why, and yeah, it's a website that's kind of, if you want to find out about me, you would go to 7pillarsglobal.com, and it's the number 7, and pillars is plural, or my LinkedIn profile. Those two are synced up, and they'll take you to my YouTube channel. It'll take you to my other social media sites, and so if you're interested in connecting with me, I would say go to 7pillarsglobal.com or my LinkedIn profile, which is, my last name followed by my first name after the LinkedIn URL. And
what's in the LinkedIn cheat sheet? What's so special about it?
I just kept bumping into people that weren't using LinkedIn properly at all. And, when you're engaged with someone and you're helping them make a career move or, negotiate them up in some capacity, change their circumstances, particularly today, no one's going to talk to you before they look at your LinkedIn profile. If you're a professional, if you're an executive, so the cheat sheet just says, this is what you should do when you build your profile, so that when you begin telling the world that you're looking for a change, people can come to your LinkedIn profile and it'll be consistent with wherever else they see you. So there's just, it's very helpful for people, and I give it away because it's a nice way for me to start a relationship.
All right, Mr. Mark, we'll definitely, I'm going to visit you again, man. You got some knowledge. You dropped some stuff today that I have to think about. So
Please do.
Talk to you later. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, David.